Meeting tonight, and I'll ask our deputy clerk to take attendance, and then we'll have the pledge.
Good evening, welcome to the town of Orangetown. This is the workshop meeting of Tuesday, April 25th, 2017. And on a roll call, Councilman Troy, Councilman Divany,
Here.
Councilman Valentine,
Here.
Councilman Batari,
Here.
Supervisor Stewart.
Here.
I'm going to ask everybody to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And again, this town board session, we have a busy agenda tonight. We're in workshop mode, but there are a couple of small items that we'll want to take a vote on just for timeliness. They're not a big deal, but they're timely. And we're going to start, I'll make a couple of announcements, and then we have a couple of presentations related to ongoing projects the town has. And then we have our agenda. We may have some new business at the end. We're planning on having a short executive session, primarily to talk about our work on the CSEA contract and negotiations about that, which we do in executive session. And then we have planned, at least a couple of us are anyway, and if there's room, others can participate. We're going to do a quick driving tour up to Clarkstown to look at their LED lights, the street lights that have been converted to LEDs. In one of the items we're working on right now in Town Hall is a conversion process to LED streetlights. So there's many steps, and tonight is one of them, going to take a look with our consultant who works on that. So without further ado, just a couple of announcements. First of all, and maybe we'll mention this again next week when there's more folks here, but there are a couple of important memorializing resolutions or proclamations. Building Safety Month, Mental Health Awareness Month, National Police Week, and National Public Works Week. And I won't go on at length, but in each of these cases, they're important, except for mental health, where we don't have town staff, but the others are really reflective of town departments and town functions and essential services for the public. And taking time to celebrate and build awareness about what they do is important. We're also voting on a contract with a mental health agency as well, so the town's involved in that, and we have committees focused on drug abuse prevention and similar things. So just want to make those announcements. The proclamations, which I won't read, are here for anybody to look at. Also announcing that there's a public hearing on May 2nd at 8:10 p.m. to consider a local law adopting a temporary moratorium on the construction or installation of new or the expansion of existing telecommunications facilities and structures within the unincorporated town. That essentially, when we have a moratorium, you have to pass a law that creates a moratorium. And that gives you time to look at your law in terms of making sure that we guide the installation of new telecommunications towers in a way that's intelligent and based on best practices. So we need to kind of hit pause, and that requires a local law, and that's what that's going to be about. So having said that, I wanted to start by inviting Dave Wasenda, who's sitting right here, our contract manager of the Broadacres Golf Course and the Blue Hill Golf Course, to talk a little bit about the capital planning process for the golf courses, to talk to the town board about that. If you want to come, if you would just use this microphone here, Dave. Actually, and of course, his work at the golf course. It's greatly appreciated. We get good reports from golfers. The town budget is much better off because of your work, and part of our agreement with your company, Applied Golf, is to support capital projects where necessary. But this is sort of background for anybody who's listening. The contract provides that Dave can't just say we need to spend $50,000 to build a new pond on the golf course or fix some drainage work. He has to come to the town board with a capital plan, go through our finance department, and there's a allocation in the yearly budget for the golf courses of a certain amount of town money for capital projects. And that's what we need to review tonight.
Thank you, Andy, and thank you for all the support from the town and the residents for making the golf courses successful over the past number of years since we've been affiliated with Orangetown. So we started Broadacres in 2014, so this is our 4th season, and we started at Blue Hill last year, so this will be our 2nd season coming in. Everything at Broadacres has been settled for a while, and at this point, Blue Hill, we're hitting on all cylinders now and looking forward, as long as it stops raining out and gets a little warmer, to a great year. As far as the capital is concerned with the golf courses, our company has made significant investments in things that contractually we've been able to go to the town about, but we figured, being, as we've professed since the beginning, being a good partner with the town, that we've, so long as we've been able to fund it out of our operating budget, we've been able to do so. So
That's greatly appreciated.
no, I mean,
Thank
that's,
you for
again,
that.
that's part of our pledge to the town when we started to be a partner and not a contractor with you. So I just handed out a simple summary just for our conversation purposes, is that at Broadacres, which we started in 2014, we had a $25,000 allowance towards capital. Obviously, we'd have to come to the town to get those capital expenses approved. It's nothing we can do on our own. But we, for the first 3 years of our contract, we requested no capital and funded about $55,000 of our own money back into the operation. So we were, been allowed $75,000 and used zero. We put in new carpeting, new signage. We painted some interior and exteriors, window treatments, new pavement near the pro shop, new marketing displays and TVs, new point of sale system, new hot water heater, irrigation pump expenses, golf course equipment, and other golf course improvements. So we feel real good about Broadacres on how we approached the operation. This year, unfortunately, we've come to a crossroads with our irrigation pump. If you remember, in the beginning of our contract, that was the suspect piece of the puzzle to begin with. The irrigation pump had been failing. We've spent over $17,000 of our own money in trying to repair that pump to avoid replacement over the last 2 seasons. But our irrigation pump experts that we have used have deemed it at this point non-repairable, and we've gotten quotes anywhere from $39,000 to $58,000 on an emergency basis to get this pump operational before the weather hits. So that's what we have to report, and we have no other capital requests, nor we foresee no other capital needed for Broadacres this year and in the near future. So that's really the only big thing that we've incured. On the
Just
Blue Hill
before
side of things,
Before you go on,
Yes, go
Dave,
right
I
ahead.
just want to
Go right
mention, first of all, it seems entirely reasonable to me, replacing the pump. But, you know, there's another project which we have to undertake now, which you've estimated, you know, around $25,000, which is as a result of the redevelopment of the Rockland Site property. And this just to remind ourselves and anybody who plays golf over at Broadacres, First Ave is going to close, and the access to that parking lot is going to switch around a little bit, and we're going to need to do a little bit of improvement on that Woods lane to make it passable, and that's something that the town board should be aware of as part of the redevelopment process. You know, and I'm talking with Office of Mental Health, and they've evinced absolute support for the town directing golf traffic behind the Catholic Church, using that lot and going all the way back to the gravel lot on the existing path. But I understand that we need to do some improvements on that path.
yes,
And
and
that's going to need to happen this summer before they close the First Avenue.
and I think it's very, very easy to do, very non-disruptive, you know, and with proper signage and just getting the golfers used to coming in that way. It's a minimal disturbance to the whole operation.
I'm excited that it's not going to cost us a ton of dough to accommodate the closure of First Ave, and so.
Right, and we would just use, there's an existing path for those people who play. There's an existing path from the lower gravel parking lot towards the church that brings you up and around the first tee and putting green. We would just basically expand that area, so there's no real, disturbance in there. It's
Yeah.
very, very, very minor.
We just need to make sure that people driving in and out and golfers, like, with their little bags of,
We walked the area several
Yeah.
times with Joe Rafter, the manager, who's familiar with the traffic, and again, we don't see any issues
Yeah.
there whatsoever.
Paul's liaison to the golf committee. Do you have any comments about the trail or the path? Or you heard anything from the golfers or the golf committee regarding the,
No, I
The,
don't think most of the golfers are aware fully what's going on yet.
right?
With that, Andy. But this really has nothing to do with his capital. I just want
I know, but
everybody to
it's
be
still,
fully
it's a
aware that
project, it's a capital project, it's
That's a
small.
town
yeah.
capital project, nothing related to the golf course, because we're selling the property and closing the street on the golf course. So, but, again, I've been over there many times. I think that, as Dave stated, it's not gonna be a big disruption or a big amount to the
Yeah,
town.
I think it's gonna be pretty
I think we could probably
seamless.
do the whole thing in-house with Jimmy with, minimal, so.
Right.
It's minimal.
Just on that, while we're on it, I know you would have thought this already, but, you're gonna have to be able to communicate with the golfers as to the closure of First Ave.
That's
And-
not gonna happen till after the season.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking that, no, that's not true. Ostensibly, if the JP Morgan group continues apace through the approval process, they could very well be looking to close that before the golf season ends. So
And
it's-
our plans were, once we got a little further down the road, no pun intended, is that we have a monthly email that we have.
Right, and
we
you could
would
advise
start
the golfers.
introducing that months before to get people in the habit of using the new route.
Exactly what I'm
Kind of
suggesting.
open up the new route before the road closes.
Right.
That way you're training people and, for people who forget, hey, it's your last time coming down this
Yeah.
road type
I don't
thing,
think it's
so.
gonna be a big deal. I mean,
Yeah.
the golfers that go to Broad Acres are the more laid-back golfers who just wanna get out, and they are, if this was happening in Blue Hill, I think you'd have a little bit more of a problem. Broad Acres, very accommodating people, I don't think you're gonna have an issue at all.
Okay, I agree with that. Good. Okay, Blue Hill last year, each year contractually, we're at 150,000 allowed per contract. Last year requested 0. This year, the only thing that's on the plate early in the season is we have a pipe on number 6 that is believed to be compromised. We have some experts looking at it right now, and we're not positive of this expense. This is just preliminary. This is the lowest bid that we got to fix the pipe. It basically prevents a pond from building up in front of the green, but it's minimal, and at this point, we're not even requesting this money until we get further clarification. But that's the worst-case scenario if it were to be the pipe. And right now, we foresee no huge issues happening over there that would be, major capital expenditures, at least for the 2017 season. We've put in over $160,000 into Blue Hill. Most of that's been golf course equipment. Probably 2/3 of that has been golf course equipment. But we did put in new pro shop design and cabinetry, new signage, interior and exterior painting, building upgrade and repairs, new outdoor loudspeaker system, new office furniture and cabinets, new marketing displays and TVs, new point of sale system, new permit ID equipment. Like I said, golf course equipment, some other golf course improvements, and built a new website. So, again, I think that now that our first year is kind of settled, and that was the larger of the two operations. As Tom mentioned earlier, it's much higher paced environment there. So it took a little longer than Broad Acres to get acclimated there, but we feel that, again, we're past the point of a learning curve, and we're ready to rock and roll this year once the weather breaks. So.
Great. Any questions about that, guys? Nope. Thank you very much, Dave.
Okay, thank you for your
Thank you.
continued support. We appreciate it.
Jeff, do we actually need to have a vote at next meeting related to the improvement at Broad Acres, that pump?
I think it would make sense to have a resolution.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
Along the lines not to exceed,
Right.
and you may want to give them a little leeway in there because we want best value and not necessarily lowest cost, because obviously he's got to hire a contractor that can do the job and he can construct it, et cetera. So,
Right.
I know Dave gave you the lowest cost, but, you may want to build a little leeway in there, just do it not to exceed.
Right. All right, onwards. Presentation by historic areas folks. If you would take the podium. Just as background, a few weeks ago, we started a discussion that's been going on for a while in an ad hoc committee, recognizing members of our Historical Society, Historic Area Board of Review, interested parties, talking about a couple of little fine tunings of our town code as it relates to the historic areas overseen by by that district. So if you could please, we have a revision. Is there a handout that's?
There was, I don't know, I have, in your packet.
Okay, let me
there might be
just.
something, recommendations for changes.
All right, I
You
don't
guys
see the
have a-
handout either. That is a little annoying. Hold on a second. Look in your packets, all right, because there's supposed to be revised language that they're talking about. Give me 1 second, all right?
It's doing so well, and I didn't even touch it. Yes.
I've got the machine making 10 more. All right, so,
Well, we did have a very small PowerPoint.
okay. Matt, can you fire up the PowerPoint thing? You're working on that, right?
Yeah. But in any case, thanks for having us back again. And this is same group. We've been working on this to address the questions that you asked about two parts of the proposal that we made the first time, which had to do with what seemed to be confusion about the controls and also how to determine a formula for scale and size and that is harmonious in keeping with the adjacent areas. So we addressed that one, and we also addressed the confusion about the demolition and 90-day waiting period language And those are the first two changes that you will see on the sheet that you've just been given. If the PowerPoint comes up, we'll go back because we have the maps of both historic districts on there, and also some photographs that might help to clarify what we're trying to accomplish, which is essentially, just as Andy said, a fine-tuning, a simplification, a clarification of some of the things in the code that would help applicants and the Historic Area Board of Review. So, for the first one, it's, as you can see, proposals to respect the distinctive character of the immediate surrounding area by following existing scale, height, building, and roof forms, rhythm, proportions, and materials. That's the change in the wording. It doesn't rely on any particular formula. And if anyone from our committee would like to address that as I'm speaking, please do, Larry or Thano.
Good evening. I'm
Thank
Larry
you.
Butcherelli with
Welcome.
Historic Area Board of Review. This first item, the controls, was aimed primarily at the limiting of gentrification within neighborhoods. This does not prevent someone from building a big home in an appropriate area within the historic areas. Thana will attest, we have approved a number of large homes within the historic area. This is designed more to assist neighborhoods staying neighborhoods and not to destroy historic neighborhoods by a builder or a new homeowner that wishes to alter a home in a way that's not appropriate in that historic area.
Just as a clarification in my own mind, it basically has to do with largely with size, but also appearance. And one of the triggers was there was an enormous house proposed, and there was a question of how to handle something that might be completely out of scale.
That's correct.
And then last time we talked about this, there was sort of a radius drawn on a map, and there was certain percentages and stuff, which was a little difficult to sort out. It seems like, and this is more of a. It's essentially the same, code, but with just a little more specificity. The HABOR already, in the non-bold section here, reviews matters to make sure that new structures harmonize in general character with structures built in the immediate area. And this specifies size.
Size, correct.
And some other kind of guidance for HABOR related to how to know when a proposed structure is in harmony or not. The basic principle of looking at whether it's in harmony is established. That's what HABOR does.
Yes.
It has successfully, and I thank you for that.
Yes.
And this is a suggestion for sort of further specifying, that interpretation process.
Right. It was our understanding that the formula that we had come up with to limit size within areas was a little objectionable. And this takes that formula away and puts more verbiage that will also give HABOR the tools it needs to maintain those areas.
Any questions about
Yeah.
we wanted to make sure that.
It says that you're following the existing scale and height. If you're following the existing scale and height, how are you, as a builder or someone who wants to build, add on to their building, how are they going to be allowed, given this language? Because it's basically saying you're following the existing scale and height. That, to me, wouldn't allow for larger buildings to be built or add, you wouldn't be able to add on to your existing building.
There is a handout, I don't know if you got it.
No, we just have this right here. I'm just saying, with this language, I don't think it's clear, and, you've got attorneys in this town that
I guess the question is, does the word following indicate sort of a hard restriction, or, you know, because the rest of the language, you know, when you talk about harmonizing, there's a sense that it's not setting any one size or height or scale, but it's seeking harmony in the neighborhood. And John is saying
I'd
maybe
just
the
like
word
to-
following makes it seems like you're supposed to follow some other thing, like copy it. And I don't think anybody on the board wants to copy, you know,
What
one
I
house
think
has
is
to be exactly
important
like the other one.
to note is that the terms that are used here harmonize in scale, height, building, roof forms, rhythm, proportions, et cetera. These are extremely common terms when looking at historic areas. So the Department of Interior, for example, uses these terms. I think Larry just handed you sort of a little glossary that tells you what harmonizing is. So you were absolutely right in your prior comments that a particular formula isn't a common use in historic areas, but using terms like harmony, congruousness, and coherence are common terms when it comes to historic areas. So we also have some very simplistic drawings, but these are also commonly used in historic areas in other parts of the country. Okay? So you'll see that it's, the idea is to keep neighborhoods harmonious.
What's immediate surrounding? What's an immediate surrounding? What does that mean? I mean, is that the same block? Is that the block behind? Is it within the same historic district? Is it within a mile? What's immediate surrounding area?
Generally, there's not a specific radius that's pointed out in other historic area guidelines.
Well,
It's up
we've
to
certainly been
the
in consultation with John.
historic areas board to determine what is
Some of the stuff you
relative based on the size of the historic area itself.
Because I think when you do, I think when you do immediate surrounding, like when you have to post to go before the ZBA, you have to get your immediate surrounding houses, so it's every house that attaches to the property within a line of sight. Right, and so there's a definition, I'm wondering if this definition follows that suit, or can someone say, hey, you know, they're 4 blocks over, but I am immediately surrounding, and, you know, I want them to follow suit. I want a salt and pepper house, I don't want a Cape Cod house.
Well, I think the reason why,
We follow the same posting regulations that the
Exactly.
ZBA would.
Yes.
It's 200 foot, which is when you are given your list of butters.
I get that for posting, but what about if someone comes up and says, you know, I don't want them to build that style house because I'm in the immediate surrounding area? Do we need a definition for maybe immediate surrounding to say it's the same as the posting?
Interesting question.
the reason why we kept immediate surrounding area is because that had been the language before,
Mm-hmm.
and it ties into that very point. So,
Yeah, that language is in, you'll notice it's not, it's in the first sentence, which is old language, immediate surrounding order. So, and I was there for that committee meeting where people were asking the same question, Paul.
Mhm.
And they said, well, we don't have all the answers to exactly how that's interpreted, but let's just not change that. So it was immediate surrounding area in the old version of the rule, and they just decided to maintain that language. And
I think that
maybe that language
that
is
language in
problematic
the
in
old,
some way,
I think
but
is problematic in the old rule, because, I mean,
If I might, I've been on the board a long time. I'm a senior member, been on the board since 1985. And I think it's important to understand that the board works. If you try to be too precise with language, I think what happens is that you get a good lawyer and they're going to find another way through. I guess the best example I can give of a word is obscenity, where a justice of the Supreme Court, when asked about, obscenity, said he couldn't define it, but he knows it when he sees it. okay? And to some extent, what I think you folks have to do, well, not have to do, but perhaps should do, is rely on the decision of the board that you have appointed. You've got 7 people on the board, and I can tell you that many times there are 7 different opinions about something. But it works. And if a person doesn't agree with the board's decision, he's got remedies to go before the ZBA and elsewhere if he doesn't agree with the ZBA. So essentially, the process does work. And that's why I don't think it's really necessary to be too precise. You know, what is true about immediate surrounding in Tappan may not be true about the same property in Palisades, or vice versa. So I just wouldn't, from a practical point of view, I wouldn't worry too much about it.
But as an attorney, I'll tell you, I'd rather have precise, because there could be, you go to the law library in New City, there could be 100 cases on the interpretation of immediate surrounding, and, you know, I'm precluded from going to any of the land use boards, but I'm sure there's attorneys out there that, you know, immediate surrounding, you could litigate that, and, you know, I'm just saying, you know, if the idea is to make it more clear, then this is not doing it.
Well, my suggestion is that we just let it ride from what it was, because in the years that as I say, I've been on it since 1985, I don't think this has really come up too often, and it certainly hasn't made any big, tremendous fuss about it. I just don't think it's necessary.
While we appreciate what you do, and we really do, right? And I have total confidence in the board. You're asking us to change the law, right? So if we're doing that, we try to make it clearer, not, you know, clear as mud. So I appreciate the fact that a little ambiguity can help, and, you know, it can definitely give you a little leeway on to make good decisions. It also leaves the town open to, you know, a lot of litigation.
No, so far, it just hasn't happened, you know,
Well,
in the history
because-
of the board.
How many problems have we had with, I mean, are we addressing one problem with a house that was too big, or is it a common problem?
Well, it's, in this case, it really is one problem that has come to the surface in recent memory. There have been a few other houses that, obviously, smaller houses don't,
Never would have the.
it doesn't happen with that. You know, you can't say, well, it's too small, it doesn't fit the surrounding area, but too big, it does. And so far, these things have been resolved. I mean, the nice thing about the board is, and as happened in this particular case with this, the example, is that with community input and with the cooperation of the property owner, this issue was resolved.
Right.
And I guess that's the best example I can give of something that with the process worked.
We know
So
from time.
that's my question, is what, you know, since we've only had one problem and you guys did such a great job and it resolved in favor of the surrounding area, do we really need to change the law?
I think by immediate surroundings, I mean literally the houses and the properties surrounding either the prospective builder, whatever they want to build or whatever they want to renovate. Because what we're trying to avoid is, just imagine, I think you're all familiar with Palisades, imagine across from the library where now the school is. If some builder were to come in and purchase that property and decide to build a bunch of houses, you don't want those, you know, 1,500 square foot houses on each side, or maximum 2,000 square foot houses. And just because that one property happens to be 4 acres, that somebody plops a 12,000 square foot house. And what we mean by immediate surrounding is for whatever is built there to not go like this and like this, you know, or whatever. So I think that's immediate. So if you think maybe we should make it more precise, or leave out the word immediate. But
Just,
How about,
just to be clear, though, this group didn't propose
I would
a
be
change
fine
in
with
that language. That's the
I'd be
same
fine with
language
that.
that's been there
But
for
abutting
years.
properties, I'm
abutting
fine with.
properties?
Yeah.
Okay, because that's really what we're trying to just, because we know there are bigger houses like 2 blocks over. We just don't want, you know, this.
And you know what, I appreciate that, and I think if you put abutting properties, that would be,
Instead of immediate.
That's
Yeah.
more clear to me.
while I have the mic.
Well, just
I just wanted-
within, is this within the historic zone?
Yes.
Only
And so
within it.
it's not a block off it's not, so if a house is abutting where at some point, the historic zone's gonna start and stop.
We actually have that in the old driving range where it used to be the golf course.
Right.
The houses, the last few houses in that curve over there are actually outside of the historic district, and those houses are larger, and the historic board has no say over the size of those houses.
So maybe we just
So it
need to
does
put
happen.
within, abutting, within.
Even if it's an abutting property, there's no.
This is changes to historic. And the other thing is the controls are a lot more clear, be subject to a 90-day waiting period. And then the public notice. I guess it's,
Before we go on to the demolition part, because that's, the next item has to do with a revision to the demolition, right?
Well-
Could you just show the slide that relates to this question of harmonizing in the surrounding area? Because the town board has a printed sheet, but I feel like people should get to see that.
There we
It's
are.
that, so basically, there's, you got 4 houses, one guy wants to make one that's a little bigger, but basically it matches more or less, and then the next one, the guy wants a big, tall, spiky one that clearly sticks out or a little, and so it's just a question of degree. This rule wouldn't prevent someone from having a house that's somewhat larger than the immediate surrounding ones. It would require that it kind of be in harmony with them. No, I wanted to clarify it because
I'm fine with that, and it shows abutting houses, so if you do that, I'm absolutely fine with that.
And it doesn't also, the wording also doesn't limit the style of the house, so it's not like you just have to have colonials or whatever, so the wording makes it.
No, and especially because if you see, Tapan is a good example of houses close together, where there's a Victorian, a cape, and in between the two, there's a new house that actually harmonizes very nicely, thanks to the Haybar efforts over about 2 years in getting the scale of that house. This is on Kings Highway. It's a new house, and it harmonizes. It provides a nice continuity. It does exactly what this description of scale, height, building, roof forms, and rhythm. And it's an excellent example of how a cape on one side and a Victorian on the other actually work with this new house in between. And so in an area particularly like Tapan, where you've got houses close together and Victorians and a real mix, this is a particularly important point to make, so that there is a lot of latitude for variety. And it also protects areas like Palisades, which have a lot more area on which houses can be built, and does ask that they find a way to harmonize without becoming egregiously out of character with the neighborhood. So we're not proposing a change in the law, because that was the existing language from 1965, I believe. So we're not changing that language. We're trying to clarify what immediate existing area implies.
okay.
I think harmonizing actually fits better than the wording.
Can we move on to the next item? You have 3 items. You got the size, harmony, the demolition process, and signs.
No, yeah, Hasano can do that. Where are we?
So maybe we should.
Here we are. Demolition.
You go ahead and talk about this, and I'll do
No, I can't do this. No, I can't do the harmon. You have to do the demolition. Oh, well, okay. Let's just go back to the very first thing, which is the monument sign, just to get that out of the way. We wanted to include that in the definition because there are a lot of monument signs in Tapan of a variety of sizes, and these are just 2 examples. And that just simply demonstrates what that means. Okay, we've tried to deal with this.
And that was at the, it's just adding a definition,
That's correct,
so people know what they're talking about when they say monument sign.
right.
So on the question of the demolition,
Okay,
the
I-
earlier proposal
I don't
had
have any visuals on that.
asked for demolitions, which are currently subject to an administrative permit process by the building department, to go to Habor and thus be on an agenda and subject to public comment, so on and so forth. This proposal does not include having demolition permits subject to Habor review, but it does say, notify the public through the newspaper and a sign, and give them time to go to the building department, pull the application, talk to John G., find out who's planning, it's a modification of the last proposal, which doesn't make it subject to the group's review, but does make it subject to notification so people know what's going on.
Yeah. The only other thing that we're requesting, the last time we did this was 20 years ago, I think, and we included houses to be included in this up to 1918, if I'm not mistaken, and what we're requesting is houses now built before 1945. It really doesn't matter 1941 or 1945. It was done because houses before that have a certain feel about them, a certain style, that maybe in 1997 they said, well, it's not that important, but now 20 years later, we're seeing that houses built before World War II should come under the umbrella of houses that are worthy of being saved, and if we can just include them in the 90-day process, it'll allow people to possibly buy them or save them in some way. So we're just asking for, I think the word used was a moratorium before, just allowing people to try and save these houses. More and more we're having people coming into Palisades and Tappan saying, oh, what a lovely community. I just love the quaint village, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm just going to buy this house and knock it down and put something new in because I need that for my family. If this continues, we are not going to have the kind of wonderful architectural atmosphere that we are so proud of now. So we're not asking for anything more than just including these. I don't know exactly how many buildings. I did a quick count, and in Tappan, there were at least 23 houses that were built between 1918 and 1940, at least. And some of them, I'm sure there are more in the tax record. Some of them are not available or whatever. And a very slight, quick survey of Palisades Historic District, I came up with, you have? I did that. Oh, you did that. How many?
And there were 32 houses built between 1918 and 1945.
So I think that these houses are also worthy of, the slight amount of protection that it gives, for a 90-day period in which they might be possibly saved.
It's my understanding, just to clarify for everybody here, that the Habor, or in the building department, they can't simply refuse to allow somebody to demolish a house.
No, that's
But there's
the
a
property.
process they need to go through. They need to get a permit.
Yeah.
They need to do abatement. It needs to be safe. There's a particular way of doing it. And this would add to that process a notification. In a 3-month, I don't know how long they have to wait right now, but it would give people 3 months to see the poster and ask some questions of the building department, or if they know the applicant, they can track them down somewhere.
John, what's the waiting period right now? Is there a waiting period?
I thought it was 90 days, in fact. Isn't it in the ordinance?
For the historic area, the ordinance as is now is owners of structures constructed before December 31st, 1918 in the historic area who desire to tear down a structure shall obtain a permit 90 days in advance of tearing down such a structure in order that anyone who desires to save the structure by suitable means may have time to do so. So that's the current law.
So the
And all we're
proposal
asking is that we
right.
change it from 1918 to, at your discretion, 1941 or 1945. I don't think there are any houses built in those areas during the wartime, so it really doesn't matter too much.
And add that notification in the newspaper so that,
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Now, is there a particular style of house that was built in this from 1918 to 1945, or?
You've got several styles. The most common, I think, would be the four-square house. I may be wrong about that, but You know, you've got four-square house with, usually with a front porch, with pillars on it, and you live in such a house, if I'm not mistaken?
I had a house with a front porch on it. I'm not sure it was four square,
Okay.
though.
All right,
I like porches.
yeah. But they're kind of neat.
Yeah.
Stebbins house. A stone, fieldstone house, clapboard fieldstone. It looks very old. It looks as if it were perhaps an 18th century house. It's not, it's 1930s, is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
Built by someone who
Thank you.
actually helped to establish the historic area. There are others along Kings Highway, arts and craft style houses. In fact, it's not just that, the style of the house, it's perhaps maybe the ability to move a house somewhere else to a vacant lot that someone may have purchased, or to use the materials in the house. The Sacred Heart Rectory is a good example. That was taken down, but inside there were the absolutely beautiful woodwork and staircases and fireplaces, mantels, that could have been saved had there been
Salvaged, yeah.
salvaged and used elsewhere. So it has that behind it, not just, or certainly not prohibiting demolishing a house, but time to find an alternative solution to the use of some of the materials if they're of some value as well.
Right, rather than having a demolition occur and
Yeah.
nobody even knew it was coming and didn't have
Yeah.
a chance to talk about it.
Yeah, it's weird what happened. Suddenly a house is gone and a neighborhood has changed. And so the notification is the sort of a basic courtesy to the neighborhood in which the house exists. In addition to maybe giving people an opportunity to acquire a house that they might not have otherwise, assuming it could be moved or altered in some way.
Right.
So
Can we-
that's what's behind it, really, just improving the notification process and extending protection to really a handful of houses compared to what exists now.
If we could just move on to the signs question, I know
Sure.
that, if you could sort of summarize its intent, because there's a lot of verbiage there. That what's the basic idea here?
The basic idea is to have the signs in the historic area, excuse me, be signs that are actually following the historic area guideline rather than the community shopping district guideline, which there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine for community shopping under certain conditions. But there's a lot of vagueness in the wording as it exists, and to direct people to looking at the R15. It's an R15 district, but when you actually try to find that, you have to go to the R80 regulations, which afford the greater protection for signs in the historic area. And here's, where are we? An example of, here, these are signs that are on a corner building, and these are, these conform to the community shopping regulation of 40 square feet. And it's perfectly reasonable. We have no objection to that because it is a corner location, and it makes sense to have that kind of square footage on both sides of the building. What has happened occasionally is that people put up signs that are larger than the R15, R80 regulation for the historic area, which allows for only 20 square feet total. You could have two signs that were 20 square feet in total. That would be fine, or signs, wording on the window and a sign. But often the signs exceed that that limitation. So it's just a way to make it clearer to whoever wants to put up a sign in the historic area that, yes, it's a commercial district, but it's the heart of the historic area, and the historic area ordinance supersedes the community shopping one. This is a problem. There have been a plethora of neon and electronic and backlighted signs in certain areas of the historic area in Tapan. Also temporary signs that are there for years rather than just, say, 30, 60 days, whenever it takes to get approval. And then lettering, there's a lot of lettering on windows. Some of it's fine, some of it's excessive. So rather than putting a limit on it, a square footage limit on the lettering on the windows, to have a hay bar consider the lettering on the windows in connection with the proposed signage, so that there's a harmony between what the sign is doing and the amount of lettering on the window that may repeat or enhance whatever the commercial message is that is intended by the owner. So this is the proposed language that clears up what is vague in the table of use language now. It's been understood that illuminated signs are not allowed except when they're lit from without, with the light shining down on or up. But that has been ignored. So we're trying to make it clearer from the outset what it is. And here's an example. This is a strip of stores, and you can't really see how excessive the lettering is on some of the stores. But it's in the historic district. A lot of neon, a lot of busyness in the windows. It's right across from the cemetery, the manse barn, and it's out of character with what's supposed to be in the district as far as that kind of signage. These are two examples of really modest, very modest signs, that 76 House, of course, and changing heads, which could have been actually bigger than it is. But it does what it needs to do, and it doesn't have anything in the windows, aside from some lovely window decorations. So those are just some recommendations, some examples. I think what you see on the last page, the table of general use for the CS district, that simply repeats the very same clarification that is in the R80, R15 historic area. It's numbered differently because of the format in that table of use. But we wanted to have the CS conform, to be the same definitions and requirements as the historic area, just for that clarification.
So just to summarize it, the law allows illuminated signs, and you're not trying to change that. But what you're trying to specify is that neon, electronic, or backlighted signs are not permitted. And so there's a specification of what kind of illuminated signs are not permitted, and then the regular illuminated signs where the light source is not visible to or directed toward a residential use and other concerns remain. So I get that one. Then there's a bit about temporary signs, how they displayed and how big they can be and for how long. And then there's lettering on windows being, instead of lettering on windows just not being reviewed at all, having that reviewed because that's a sign too.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. And
I
it
got it.
really, okay. And
I think you guys have done a great job on this.
okay, thank you.
And it is complicated stuff. And I appreciate the fact that you're paying so close attention to it because it does affect the way our community feels and how it looks. Any questions from the town board on the the sign, question about signs and what kind of lighting is preferred versus not in a historic area.
Out of curiosity, the lettering on windows and doors is subject to approval by Haybar. So what if they write 1 week sale? Is that a permanent sign? Is that a temporary sign? Does that have to be reviewed?
No, no, that's not the intention of this. It's the kind of, and in fact, I believe somewhere in the ordinance, I can't remember where, it addresses the idea of for sale signs, and realtors who have signs up for sale or for rent. And there is a limitation on that. I can't remember what it is.
Those are all temporary signs.
Those are all
Whereas
temporary
lettering
signs.
on a window
Yeah, it has
that's
nothing to
affixed
do-
to it
yeah.
is a permanent
Yeah.
sign.
It has nothing to do with that kind of for sale. Nobody would bother with that. I mean, we put up we ask people in town to put up our signs for plant sales and Colonial Day.
Okay.
No, no, it's just things that get very busy and very, very, well, especially now with all the electronic signs blinking and going on and off, that has always been denied by Haybar, the interior lit signs. Whenever that came up, that's my recollection. What's that? Oh, lost dog, lost cat, yeah. But that has always, but this clarifies what those.
Lettering on windows, not someone
Right.
who writes
Yeah.
with, white chalk.
No.
Sale this week or something.
Yeah, I mean, if you're familiar with Tapan, you think of Joe's Barbershop. That was one of I mean, that was there, it's been there for about 15, 20 years. It's peeling now. I don't know if he's going to replace it, but everybody thinks that's an appropriate thing. Mimi's plate, it's nice, very attractive, enhances, she has a very small sign hanging above her shop. So those things work together very nicely. So it's worth seeing, using those examples as models for people who want to perhaps put signs up for new businesses or revamp their old businesses, and recommend that this, when you're going to Haybar with your sign proposal, have this in mind, what you want on the windows as well.
Okay.
Those are just, that's what we're trying to clarify what works and what would be harmonious again, in that area. And not make it so jazzy and busy in that one particular, because coincidentally, the community shopping area is the heart of the historic district. So it would be nice to have it be a little calmer than wherever it is elsewhere.
Well, thank you for that. I
Thank you.
think It's also just a really in-depth kind of report back from Haybar. We appreciate the chance to, to recognize your work. I think these suggestions are great, and I'll talk with the town board, and hopefully we'll get support on setting a time for a public hearing when we can look at changing the law and invite public comment about it, and the way we do for any other change like this. So that's that. Let's quickly take a look at the rest of the agenda. We're pushing 9 o'clock here, and we got some other things to do. So we'll make this quick. The number one, there's a couple of typos in it, but I think its intent is clear. This is memorializing resolution on the parole board related to Paula Boveski. And I want to take a vote on this. Move from Divany, second over here from Jerry Bottari. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, and we'll correct the typos going forward. Number two, this is the agreement with Candle for calendar year 2017, getting them going on their annual contract. Same numbers from last year. I'll make a motion for this. Do I have a second?
Is there a reason that we have to vote on this tonight?
There was, although I don't remember exactly what it is. But yeah, their contract already started, basically. So I'm trying to,
It's the same amount as last year, Andy?
right.
There's a lot of people that always stick out.
I'll make a motion for support this. Do I have a second? From Jerry, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thanks. Number 3 is the appraisal of the Hunt Road property in contemplation of its cleanup and sale. And as you know, we've talked about this before, as far as relocating town facilities, creating space for a data center, adding to the tax rolls, and so on. So I'll make a motion for this. Here, a second from over here. Valentine, all in favor, say aye. The ayes have it. Just report back. Joe Moran, Eric Gordon, Jim Dean are working on a RFP for the relocation and construction of the maintenance facilities that we'll need if we go through with this. Number 4, and ongoing, are for workshop only. We have public hearing amending the town code, chapter 5, entitled Applicability of Uniform Code. John, could you just explain to me what this is in the board, because there's not a lot of detail here. Again, this is setting a public hearing for the amendment of town code. Yeah, we got you.
This is just really a correction to the current chapter, putting in the correct verbiage for what the new code is. We also enforce now the energy conservation construction code. So I wanted to clear it up because when I met with the state a few months ago, they said make sure your language in your local law
Matches the
is
state.
the same as
All right.
we currently enforce it. So that's really all.
No big
Okay,
deal.
so it's a reconciliation.
It's the state energy code, it's not
Yes, the energy, yeah.
the state energy code, not Energy Star or whatever the
No,
other
no,
is.
no, no energy star.
Okay.
All right.
It's just the, every 2 years they update it. We're up to the 2015 with the 2016 supplements. So, the wording is not concurrent with language or something.
Okay.
This is clarification to try to make it comply with what the state's currently using.
All right, sounds good. Moving on, number 5 is the public hearing on the entity disclosure law for May 16th. We've discussed that before. Number 6, agreement with Frontier Communications, the cancellation of that agreement. Anthony, do you want to say anything about that?
So this has been a really long process with Frontier to try to get them to replace the phone system in the police department.
A new phone system for the police department.
Yes, we started negotiating with them in 2015. Actually had everything finalized March of last year, and I still have not been able to get them here. They have changed the rules a number of times. They have said they could do things that they turned out couldn't do. We've waited as long as we could. We wanted to coincide with the new radio room and install it then, so we had some time to wait on it, but they weren't able to meet it, and at this point, we need to cancel this contract with them and kind of start all over.
Okay, so there'll be a new RFP or bid process or something like that?
Presumably, we're going to extend our phone system on the town side to the police side,
Right.
so there's just pieces that we need to buy and add to it,
Okay.
but that's our plan right now.
All right, sounds good. Number 7 is this has to do with the bike bypass, Greenbush Road connector and Route 303 in Blauvelt, and it's the agreement with the state park, which has been reviewed before and has been edited a bit and back and forth with our town attorney and the Palisades Interstate Park Commission, and it's attached here, and you know, essentially it's the agreement that allows us to go forward and make the path that we got money for. Thank you very much from Senator Carlucci, and we want to move forward on that. So this is the agreement. So that's that, and it's there. If anybody wants to get into the details of it, it's attached to the agenda. Number 8 is 2 pieces related to the wastewater treatment plant and the acceptance of sludge by the Solid Waste Authority, dewatered sludge and side streams, which is stuff that gets screened out into a dumpster behind the wastewater treatment plant. And both of those solids are picked up under this agreement by the Rockland County Solid Waste Authority. Number 9 is the abatement and demolition of Blue Hill House and Blue Hill Cottage. There was, I just want to thank Eric Gordon in finance and whoever else was involved in getting what looks like a pretty good deal, because there were much bigger numbers before on that. So we've got that one. Number 10 is, and by the way, you know, just to reiterate, if anybody asks, because we've spent a lot of time on historic preservation tonight, this place is beyond anything other than demolition, and that's been verified by the building department. And see you later, Blue Hill House. Number 10 is Showmobile for American Legion, Post 310 Memorial Day Parade. Number 11, Showmobile for the African American Festival. Number 12 is retirement of Mr. Alan Seaback after many years of service to the town at the golf course, with the recommendation of the park superintendent for the issuing of a gold card granting him free access to golf at both Blue Hill and Broad Acres courses in recognition of his 30 years of service. So thank you very much, Alan, and enjoy your retirement and come back and golf as much as possible. Number 13 is, it has to do with getting reimbursed for building the sidewalk on Oak Tree Road out to Route 9W. And I just want to recognize the Highway Department, our Finance Department, you know, and Vicky too, my assistant, because boy, you really got to chase the paper on any grant-funded activities. You know, we love them, help, external funding, but you got to stay on top of it, and those guys did, and we're finally going to get our money for that. Number 14 is, and 15 are both clarifications of street ownership, and that's there. It's being described, just specifying it on, I guess the State Highway Department wanted that clarification, so there they have it. Number 16 is permission for our Highway Superintendent, James Dean, to go to a conference. Number 17 is approval of surplus Highway Department equipment, and there's a list here of about 10 pieces of equipment. If anybody has any questions for Jim related to this, sitting right here. But it's fairly routine retirement of equipment that's aged out and getting some money for it. I don't know if any of these items have a lot of sentimental value for the town. Like, you know, every once in a while something comes up where I feel like we should be having a parade for the thing or something. What's that? None of these. These don't qualify for that. Number 18 is assistance to the garage sale fundraiser. Number 19, 5K Nun Run. Number 20, Relay for Life at Pearl River. And that's it for the events. Number 21 is consulting services from GHD for $5,500 for filing a particular report with the DEC. And it's described here to make sure we're in compliance with the total residual chlorine in the final effluent. We use chlorine to disinfect the final effluent before it goes out the pipe to the Hudson, and the DEC needs certification that it's being done, and we're in compliance, and that's what that's for. Any questions or concerns about that? Okay, number 22 is the public health engineer, long awaited. Great addition to our town staff to convey the message to the public that the town is doing all it can in collaboration with other agencies, obviously, to ensure public health and to review industrial emissions wherever and whenever possible in the interest of the safety of our community. And so that's the creating of the position. And of course, it's being posted, and we're recruiting for an individual to fill it. Number 23 is a surplus Crown Vic, if anybody's interested. It's got 104,000 miles on it. I know Chris Smith was driving around in a surplus Crown Vic for a little while there. I don't know if this one still has a working heater in it or not. But they're a good, safe car if you have a new driver in the family. You don't have to worry about anybody tangling with a Crown Vic. There's one item which is before the town board, which I passed out, which is basically a zone change petition from FB Orangeburg, which is the folks who own the new Stop and Shop and the hotel. And I've given it to the town board, and I think we should invite them to make a presentation. And I welcome your comments back. I know that people haven't really had a chance to look at it yet.
I would suggest we wait until we know Dennis Troy's going to be back for that presentation.
I agree with that. And
that may not be for a couple of weeks.
And just having brought that up, I appreciate you doing that, Tom. Dennis is out because he had surgery and he's recovering, and our thoughts are with him. I know that the healing process is pretty painful, so hopefully he'll bear up, and we'll undertake everything that we can. If there's anything that needs to be delayed until he gets back, we'll try to accommodate that. So that's that for the stuff on the agenda. The last thing I wanted to do is make a motion for adjournment after an executive session and after a tour of some LED streetlights, which we're going to run out the door and do as soon as we finish our executive session, if our consultants are still around. Thank you very much for waiting. We're almost on schedule, you know. And I wanted to say, just in terms of adjournment, we have Eileen Kelly here, who worked in town hall, and also Tony Gerard, whose mom Alice was with us just a little while ago. She's part of our historic kind of preservationist community, and they have suffered a terrible loss in their family. Tony passed away while playing soccer. Was really a renowned lawyer, was fighting for the underdog, and be sorely missed. And so the Gerard family is facing it's just a very sad time. And I'm amazed that Alice was even here tonight. So having said that, I'll make a motion for executive session and adjournment. Should we do executive session first? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, we got a motion from me, a second from Valentine. And then the adjournment, I'll make a motion for that. Over here, a second. All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Aye, okay.